Okay, good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces here. That's great. Yeah, so this is an opportunity to connect, whatever is coming up in the body, mind, questions, insights, what's coming up on your path. Yeah, and just I love feeling into what's coming up in the conscious field. And usually what's coming up for one person is coming up for many as well. So yeah, I'll start with Sylvina. Hi, Sylvina.
Hello, Dan. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Well, I want to share an experience I had and then a question that came up directly regarding the experience. I'm trying to, I cannot, okay, I cannot stop seeing myself.
Oh, there's a hide self view, or you can, usually in the top right, there's a view button as well. So
Yeah,
you can view,
okay. It says only show self-view, not hide. Okay,
okay.
doesn't matter. So I was meditating with your pathless path, number 9, which I did dozens of times. And I was there breathing and abiding. And I suddenly heard my sister's voice in my head. I had a younger sister who passed away 2 years ago. We were really very different. Life grew us apart with the years. So she was not at all interested in spirituality. And I heard her voice saying, "This is not for us." And at the beginning, I was starting to think, and then I said, "Yeah, it's true. This is not for us. This is not for the small self. This is not for the young, for the little I." And something happened right there. Something shifted, and attention and perception opened up widely,
Mm.
and I suddenly felt I am. I am. It was an experience. I am. And I was there for I don't know how long, a long time. So and then after that, I can kind of have this possibility to have this experience much easily from that day.
Mhm.
So then I went to see again your teaching about attention and concentration and the eye of the bird.
Mhm.
And then I heard you speak yesterday. I heard you speak about pre-awakening and post-awakening with the person who is offering the interviews for the speaker, know the speaker.
Mhm.
And you
Yes.
talked about attention merging with the object.
Yes.
So my question is regarding, is the eye of the bird in that story, has has Arjuna merged his attention with the eye of the bird, or there is still duality?
Mhm.
And does it ever disappear at all, or attention is always somehow, even in a subtle way, present somehow? I don't know, in the I am, or
Mhm. Mhm.
what happens with that?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great question. And yeah, beautiful share. Thank you for sharing that experience. Yeah, there's, in that moment, that's a very classic kind of moment where, when something like that comes up in our practice, sometimes it seems like there can be these breakthroughs to different levels of mind. So, people will encounter all sorts of things, that are not really of this world. So, you met your sister in that, it's like the higher mind or whatever that is, that space. My feeling is that it shows us, it gives us, exactly what we need in the moment. So that, those words, this is not for us. That was that in that moment, if the little I heard that, the little I might reject meditation, in that moment. It might think, oh, this is a message from God or something, or from my, higher self. And it's like, ooh, meditation is not for me, but if we hear that, as we are, the true I, and we recognize, we see, yeah, for that little self, it isn't for that little self. You are not that character. So that's beautiful. And then the I am was present, was available, was just there. So yeah, that's classic, beautiful. It reminds me of in Eckhart Tolle's book, like The Power of Now. He had this moment where it was like, are there two of me? He it was like this moment that it could have gone either way. And yeah, so to just see directly that we are the I am. And then, so coming to your question about, yeah, the attention and I'll just maybe mention the eye of the bird for those who don't know that story as well. So that comes from the Bhagavad Gita, and there's a teaching where, Arjuna, who is one of the main characters in the Bhagavad Gita, he's with the teacher, and he, the instruction is to, hit the eye of a bird with a bow and arrow, and this is a metaphor for meditation, and so we want to. In that story, different students are coming up and they're explaining what they're doing, in their meditation practice or in that process of hitting the eye of the bird, and they're doing all sorts of different things. And then Arjuna comes up, and he says, "I see only the eye of the bird." So his attention is single pointed, and so in our meditation practice, the first part of meditation is to cultivate this single pointedness. And as you mentioned, so there's meditation before awakening and before and after awakening. So once we know who we are, once we know that I am, once I have a sense of that beingness that is ever present, then meditation just becomes just being. It's just abiding, as Ramana said, abide as the self, and that's it. There's no doing, there's no figuring out anymore. The part of the mind that wants to know, how to do it now. This is why a beginner's mind is really the dropping of that questioning. What do I do with attention? Is attention the same as awareness? All of these questions, there's a movement of the mind there. So so you know so the so I can't give you an answer, because the what I'm pointing to is what is beyond the questioner. So that I am, you know, that you directly experience, that I am that's here in this moment. If we can just abide as that I am, um, and just allow the mind to not know. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and
Because there
and
was a presence of mind. There was something
yeah,
mind-like. which was present in the I
Yeah.
am as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and that's sometimes, so when that I amness comes, or when the, however we want to say it, it's always here. So, um,
Yeah.
but sometimes the mind will go very quiet, and it's in that stillness of mind that,
Mm,
that I am wakes up to itself. But that the mind can be present. The mind can, still be generating thoughts. And it's sometimes, we think, I have to get rid of the mind. I have to, just abide in this stillness indefinitely. But
mm,
that, that's just another thought. It's just another belief,
mhm,
So the mind thinks, okay, like it's such a paradox because the mind is movement. The mind is,
mm,
the movement within the stillness. And the mind says, I have to achieve stillness, or I have
mm,
to, abide in emptiness. And the mind itself is the movement. So obviously, it's a
mhm.
problem if
Yes.
you believe that thought. So the practice, the practiceless practice is to learn to see the absurdity of that, first of all,
Mm,
and to see that, just allowing everything to be as it is, then, the mind will naturally just become more settled. Then, if we believe any of those thoughts, then, we're in this game where attention, that attention of the mind, whatever it thinks it needs to do, wherever that attention is being guided, the energy will follow that. And then, that attention always goes to what's happening, the energy, you know.
mm,
So it's like the chi or energy follows that mind attention, and then
mm,
attention follows that energy. And this
mm.
this is duality. This is the endless
Yeah.
dance of forms. So, and there's no end to that. That's just how it works. So, that's not a problem. So,
Mhm,
the only thing to do is to just know, who am I? Who am I? If I am the I am, then, I don't have to get caught in any of that. And then, the attention will naturally just sort of open. Then, it's like if I'm not looking on that level of the mind, for answers. It's like the mind will say, how do I be here 24/7? How can that I amness be here 24/7? But the mind can't do it. The mind
mhm,
has to give up. We have to enter into a don't know mind. And then, those are the conditions where, yeah, like sometimes, the mind will come, the clouds will come and go, clouds will come and go. But who is it? Who is that I am that is always there, whether the clouds are there or it's an empty sky?
Great.
Hmm.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Hmm.
Great.
Thanks, Silvina. Yeah.
Mm,
Thank you for that share.
mm, mm.
Yes. Rai. Hi, Rai.
Namaskaram, Dan. How are you?
Very well.
How you doing, my brother? Actually, I had a couple questions. But in continuation, actually, something you mentioned right now, I just wanted to ask because it kind of propped in my head. In regards to the two practices, the two sadhanas that you talk about, in terms of before awakening and after awakening. So, in my case, is a dilemma because so I've personally I've had an awakening experience before, and it was somewhat of a long time ago, I guess you could say, somewhat about four years ago. That just kind of came unexpectedly, and back then I had no idea. I didn't really know what was going on, or I think it was a very kind of kensho experience that that came to me, and I didn't know what was going on, but at the same time, I had some ideas, and then my mind kind of just appropriated it for a long time until this year that I realized, oh wow, I've I've you think yourself awake, but at the moments of awakening, but you're not fully awake all the time, right? Um, I realization came because of still kind of going through right now. So my question in regards to that is so having had that awakening experience, I kind of um, I,
Sorry,
I know what it feels like. I've
you're
gone
you're
through and going. It feels like, which
you're
feels
kind of
like your
breaking up a
soul.
little bit.
Am I cutting off?
Yeah, can
Yeah,
you
my
back
internet
up?
is unstable.
Can you back up about 45 seconds just and repeat what you just said? I just missed it. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, my internet is a little unstable, so just let me know when that happens.
sure.
Um, And so yeah, so my questions was in regards to the awakening, the sadhana before awakening and the sadhana after awakening, having had an awakening experience myself, knowing what it is, what it feels like, but then realizing that, well, actually going through this dark night episode right now, which feels like your kind of soul is so not really is you don't that arid and very dry and just soulless in a sense, is which is as part of the spiritual kind of realization. In terms of the sadhana is like, so am I now doing sadhana before awakening or post awakening, given this situation that I'm in? Like, because, and it goes back to a question I had, I asked you before, is also like, it's having sharpened my mind for so long in terms of being present, it has appropriated it. So I'm in that fifth skandha that I'm in the being present, but like, but I know what do you recommend in that case?
Hmm. Yeah, so I would say, in that experience that you had, um, there are different degrees of sort of recognition of who we are. So in the a true kensho is usually defined by the end of seeking. If so, it's like you find out who you are in that moment, and so there's no more searching or seeking for who you are. It's like the awareness that is here right now. It's clear in that kensho state. It's like waking up from the dream of the character. So it's like the character that was doing all of the sadhana up to that point, doing the yogic practices, the one doing, some technique. We realized that was actually, it was conditioned there, or there was something learned there, and it was actually the character doing that all along. So when we have that awakening, we recognize the awareness that is just here now to be our true nature, to be ourself. And then, you know, so so then our sadhana becomes just recognizing that awareness, and the vasanas and the samskaras and all of that will continue. The mind will often, yeah, actually, an awakening like that is often followed by a dark night of the soul. It's often, it's the space that allows those deeper, whatever is there, traumas, old conditioning, all of that will come up to the surface afterwards. So I suspect, whatever that was, that awakening for you, now it is, it probably is what actually created the space for this dark night now to unfold. And so, so the practiceless practice is to just notice if there's any, like that ego, the false I is simply resistance to what is. So this dark night is, all of the phenomena of that is not comfortable. We're entering into a space of, not being comfortable in the body. It's all the conditioning, all the experiences that were sort of pushed away are now coming up to be felt. And the mind that wants to know how to deal with that, that mind has to become a don't know mind. So we just sort of burn, in the fire of presence, just allowing everything to be as it is, allowing the mind to, that mind that wants to figure this out. The mind wants to get out of it, but it's like Rumi says, the wound is where the light enters you. It's actually, this is the gateway to the deepest purification. So yeah. So how is that landing for you?
I'm trying to understand or figure out if I'm doing my practices correctly because I'm going through the direct path. Like I'm not really trying to do much techniques or anything. Um, because I understand what it feels like in a sense, or so I'm trying to go through the direct experience part side of it. But I'm just trying to understand if I'm doing it right or wrong. And that's why I'm not like I'm I guess that's why I'm asking in terms of like the
Yeah.
sadhana practice, whether I am actually in the sense awakened and I'm just going through the just being part, or do I actually need to do techniques again to awaken again because it's the awakening kind of is that feeling of awakening is gone because of this Dark Night episode.
Mhm.
It's almost night and day, literally, like, because I know how it felt like to be, to have that fire in me and how it feels now to be in the desert in a sense with
Mhm.
this Dark Night episode.
Mhm.
In relation to that, when I meditate, there's this tingling, like, because every time I bring my sense of self, a sense of presence again, there's this tingling and burning sensation right on this, like right on the front prefrontal cortex.
Mhm.
You know what that is? Is that like I was looking into it, but I don't know if
Yeah.
every time I bring myself back to presence, there's this burning sensation that comes right here.
Hmm. I'm going to address that in 1 second, but there's something that you said I think that's really important. So I want to put my finger on it. So you said that I know the feeling of the awakening. You know what that state is. So
Yeah.
I would say that's to me a very important thing that you just said, um, because you have to forget that past experience. That, so the truth of who you are, this pure awareness, that which awakened in that moment, can't be remembered. It's not a memory. So when that was awake in that experience, when you were just awake, quite often when there's an awakening like that, it's a beautiful state that comes. Um, but that same awareness is here now. So we don't want to mistake the state, which always changes. The states come and go. The state is just the body mind, So that state, even though it was, you know, probably the peak state, that I'm sure it was a peak experience, but the state is not it. The experience is not it. Any phenomena, any sensation that you experience is part of the phenomenal world, and that comes and goes. But what was it who was it, in that experience that was there? Who was the knower of that experience? The awareness that was there. And so we don't, so our liberation is not in the experience. It's not like there this rewiring of the body mind is an ongoing thing. It takes years and years, and eventually the body mind can be more wired for samadhi states. It takes decades for that to happen, and it's just a byproduct of the pathless path. But we can't get hung up on those states. We can't be searching for some past state, because if our liberation is just my peace and happiness is not contingent on any phenomena. If I'm allowing everything to be as it is in this moment, recognizing that I am the awareness that's here now, then the resistance is dropped. And paradoxically, that, that state is more likely to come, But if the mind is looking for something, and I literally spent a decade, I had an early Savikalpa Samadhi experience, and I became the seeker trying to get that experience back. It was the peak experience. Everything in my being said, I want to get back to that. But I realized the one trying to make it happen, it was a memory. The true self is here now. The true awareness is here now. And so we have to forget those past experiences and those past states, and there'll be something new that presents itself when I'm not looking for anything, and I'm fully allowing this moment to be as it is. All my resistance drops, and I have a complete experience of this moment. Then that's something new, a new samadhi, a new, something that will unfold, and we don't know what that is going to look like. The unfolding of that is, it's always novel. It's not holding some state from the past that we think, this is it. And part of that unfolding is, as the energies become free, what you're describing, that, awakening of inner energy phenomena is part of that as well. So yeah, and I don't want to get too into defining what that is or what it could be, but there's a lot of sort of unfoldings, new phenomena that will come as the energy is becoming free of the old patterns. So again, it's not about trying to make
I think
something.
it is somewhat,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
there's a backlog, because of the internet connection.
Oh,
So you think it is the right way that I'm approaching, that I'm feeling that little burning sensation cutting off again?
So yeah, so if there, so I wouldn't say, I'm not gonna label anything as right or wrong. You know,
Right.
I think you know, a burning sensation. Does it feel like a resistance there, or does it feel like the energy is just moving, or is it painful? How would you describe it?
No, it feels like it literally feels every time I bring myself back to present, like when I wander, my mind wanders, and then I remember myself again. I remember that I need to bring myself back to presence and kind of just be a little burning, calm, like remembering. That it happens exactly when that happens. So,
Hmm. So
so I guess again, that's kind of
yeah,
why I asked in terms of
yeah.
it
So
being right or wrong, because a lot of the things that are coming up as well, a lot of the things that are coming up are the same things that keep coming up, like, the vasanas, the samskaras, the, it's the same things that are, or if it's just normal for things to, for those patterns to, it's kind of quieting down from the beginning, from when I started meditating
mm,
uh, a couple months ago now, at least, in these retreats, but it's still the same things coming up in a sense.
hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I think I caught most of that. There was a little bit of a breakup, but yeah, so I would say, you know, if you're coming back to presence, you know, your practice is to come back to presence, and then you're feeling, you know, that there's some phenomena that happens, you know, some energy um, is you know, it's like a you know, something like a marker almost of that presence, you know, then I think that it's a sign that yeah, energy is becoming freed. You may find that that energy will change and move, and you know, the more that mind settles, maybe the more freely that energy will move in the body mind. Yeah, and I would say it's a good sign that you said, you know, things are getting the same patterns are there, but they're settling down. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's good. That's what we want. You know, there's no, um, you know, like I see it as these samskaras and vasanas are like waves, you know, and the first time we encounter some of them, you know, it might be like a tsunami, and then they get smaller and smaller, and if we just yeah keep
But
coming back to presence and those waves, you know, the mind does settle. And I would say the greatest marker of you know, the practice is that the mind does settle over time. You know, there is a quieting. You know, we're not stirring it up. We're not doing anything. We're not trying to make anything happen. We're not, you know, wanting something other than what is. So I think for me, the biggest thing on my path was when a teacher told me to just accept whatever state is here and now. You know, don't try and get back to your samadhi state, because the one who's trying to get back to the samadhi state is the mind. You know, so this is the paradox. The more we completely accept what's here now, the closer we are to the samadhi state. You know, so it's you know, so all of these past experiences have to go. You know, they're just memories, and then you know, what is it that's here right now?
a question in regards to the last point you made there, accepting whatever is here and now, and
Mhm.
whatever state your mind is in, whatever vasanas or samskaras come up.
Mhm.
Um, you know, question in regards to that is, So how is it that you differentiate between accept but also not engage? You know, when accepting it, kind of surfing, and at the same time, if you are engaged, then you have to bring. How is that? How those waters, and so not engaging and bringing yourself back to presence again.
Sorry, I lost most of what you said there. I couldn't.
Did I cut off there?
You were breaking up. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, can you
So
repeat?
I guess the question is,
Mhm. Oh, I think we've lost him. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, maybe I'll go to Reuben and we'll see if Rai reappears there. But we'll go to Reuben right now. Hi, Reuben.
Hello, Dan.
Hello.
First, let me address the elephant in the room. Language is structured in subject, object, verb, which causes the illusion of duality. So I'm using language right now to try to describe or say something that can't be said, that can't be seen, that can't be anywhere. Yesterday, I had a tremendously grateful dyad with Bridget. Thank you, Bridget. And in that dyad, we see the language that I use doesn't fit because it's language is dual. And what I'm trying to say is something that can't be said. It's something that can't be pointed to. And that's why I'm having that difficulty. Yesterday in the dyad, you stepped into a room and I was describing being in a theater and watching a movie. And you said you said, are you there? Because I was in the I am state. I started to chant I am, I am, I am, I am. And in that state, I got to that place that is not a place, that is nowhere, that is a no time. And I one of the things that keeps coming up for me is like the character will never, never, ever, ever get it. It's like a tire understanding what flying is. It's not going to get it. It's never going to get it. And in that state, I recognize that you asked me, are you here? And I said, well, who are you referring to? I said, who are you referring to? Because I was thinking, if you're referring to the I am, then we are here. Like, look at what's happening right now. I'm looking at the screen and there's 20 people and I'm looking, I'm going, London, Japan, Tokyo, Canada, uh, California, and all these different things are happening right now. And I'm looking at the screen that is transmitting signals to all these different places at the same time. And so, like, there's no time, there's no place, there's nothing. And so, when I get to that state of I amness, then it's heaven. It's perfect, but it's not the character that's there. It's we're always there. We're always there. And whether we get it or not is irrelevant because I was thinking about the different speeds that we're traveling right now. 1,000 miles, I believe it's 20,000 miles, 80,000 miles, 1.4 million miles, depending on the point of view that you're talking about, the solar system, the galaxy. And if you go to the very biggest, the entire universe, it's completely still because there's no reference. And so in that, I was like, that's where we are. But that's not a place. It's not a where. So back again to what I was saying is that language is really confusing because I can't point to what I'm trying to say. I get it. I get it. So my question, sorry, I'm not going to my question. The character, Reuben, is married and has a wife, and it's causing her. First of all, there's no such thing as better than or net. That's a mind thing. The mind is what says, oh, I'm enlightened or I'm not enlightened. It's like we're all enlightened. We just don't know it. And that's kind of like uh, the universe is there was no separation. Separation never happened, and that's the illusion we're under. We're under this illusion of separation, which isn't really. So I'm sorry to keep rambling on to get to my question. My question is having to be in a relationship with a person married for 10 years, Reuben, the character, and it's causing her uncomfortableness. And I keep going back to just being with her and because I like being married and I would like to stay that way, but it causes uncomfortableness in people. Now, I did this retreat about a month ago, and then after that, I went to family and was with all around and it was very still and going back into the matrix of this illusion called life. Um, I'm sorry I'm rambling so much, but I'm trying to get to that point where you asked me yesterday, are you here? And it's like, yes, I'm here. But I was thinking about like Brad Pitt being in one of my favorite movies called Joe Black. Can you imagine if he's in the movie being Joe Black and all of a sudden he just turns into the movie called Bullet Train or something like that and he starts shooting people? The people in that movie would freak out. So we're in this movie called Life, and we are here because there's nowhere else to be. We're always here. Like I'm here. I'm here, Dan. This we, the words we is better than I, but the I refers to a they. That's why language is so tricky. So let me point my question to how do you be with a person who is uncomfortable when you are great? It makes people feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to do that.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question right now. So, first of all, are you separate from the Reuben character?
No.
No. Yeah. So that individual that is Reuben, that individual, the avatar, the body that is appearing in this little box, I what that sense of I, is I sense is not limited to that character, so that I that you are, when you were saying I am, that I am is inclusive.
Yeah.
It's inclusive of um,
Everything.
everything. Yeah,
Everything.
it's inclusive of your partner. It's
I am Dan.
inclusive. Yeah, yeah. So do you feel, in that relationship, if um, others are experiencing discomfort, so is there a part of you that is uncomfortable with their uncomfortableness?
Yes. The current the current movie is that we are in a studio, and I wanted privacy so I could express myself. So I asked my wife, "Do you want me to leave the room and go into the car and get into this, or would you prefer to leave?" I could not be so expressive if she was sitting next to me. Like I said, I'm doing the class right now, so this is the third day, and I'm good with being in meditation while she's sitting next to me, no problem. But to open up and have a dyad, I have to go to the car or I have to go somewhere else so that I can release more. Like right now, I'm speaking through this character named Reuben, and am I uncomfortable with that? It's so interesting that you asked that question because as the I-ness that we are, I chose to be a flight attendant for 35 years and experience all these different characters interacting while being with them. And I remember one passenger asked me, "Do you feel weird that sometimes people lose it, or have you lose it?" And I go, "Wow, if somebody can make me lose it, I almost want to congratulate them because almost nothing will make me lose it." And but that's the character. That's not sorry, the real me. If I lose it, that's the character, the mind. So right now, the mind is talking, and I see Bridget putting her hands like this. Bridget, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you did for you yesterday. So thank you for that. Sorry for rambling on.
Mm. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm going to tell you just from my own experience. To me, the relationships are the most incredible mirror to show us. I feel like my relationships with, I was married for 8 years, and then I had a 6-year relationship after that. Those relationships were the most powerful accelerator to whatever can be seen in that mirror, in that relationship. Anything seen in the mirror is always the conditioned self, because the true self is not of the mirror. That whole mirror is reflecting the conditioned self. So in a way, if we see the relationship as that, if my peace and my happiness, can be affected or is contingent on anything in that relationship, then the mirror is showing me, where am I triggered? Where am I uncomfortable? Where is there suffering? So if we see the relationship not as, something where we want to kind of fix it and get to a place of, everything is happy and, in balance or equilibrium and but it's actually, it's actually the forge where we actually see the deeper levels of self. Then it's a beautiful gift and a beautiful catalyst on the path to so it can be our teacher. For me, I was doing, meditation retreats and, having all these amazing awakenings and experiences. But the deepest work was when I went back into the relationship. And then, in those situations, the vasanas come up, whatever hasn't been purified from the unconscious, and I get to see that, and that's where, the practice gets really interesting, so so when I was asking you, in that dyad, what I was sort of alluding to is, is there, that Reuben character, is if there's a separation, or is there any sense of a change in energy, when I'm in having that direct experience of I am, and then, that the mind, the talking, the self structure comes back, and, is it possible for that to become, the I am speaking? Is it possible for it to all exist simultaneously, without knowing, without knowing, or figuring it out, but just allowing, that I am to speak, allowing that I am to just move. Um,
So are you asking, can the character Reuben ever understand? Because he'll never understand. He'll never
mhm,
get the whole thing. Now,
mhm,
the I amness is first of all, the I amness is can't really see the totality of itself, but it takes points of view and it takes all these different characters. Like I was thinking about Brad Pitt being uh, Meet Joe Black character, and then switching over to the character that he plays in Bullet Train, and those characters are all Brad Pitt, but they have to be separated and pretend sort of to be these different characters. And but knowing all the time that it's just a character and it'll never ever understand the totality of all that is.
mhm,
It can't. but it can pretend, it could play the parts.
Mhm.
It can play the parts. One last question before I go. I thank you so much for your time. The skandhas, the fifth skandha, the consciousness. I get the first four, but the fifth one, consciousness, and you're saying that the whole five of them are just a play. They're just like not real. They're just so I get the first four, no problem. The fifth one, consciousness, is like an awareness, and I'm like, what am I missing here? Because it feels like the totality of all that is all that is. What am I missing on the fifth skandha?
Mhm. So the fifth skandha is that part of the mind that sees the world. It's that part of the mind that sees all the phenomena. So the part of the mind that sees the sensations in the body, that sees the thoughts coming up in the mind, that sees the preferences of the character. So those are the other skandhas. Those are the other operations of the mind. So there's a part of the mind that sees that. It's the attention of the mind. The attention that can go here and there. I can put my attention, on my body right now. I can notice the sensations in my toes. I can put the attention on, the mind itself. I can see, is there a thought coming up in the
But
mind?
is that also an illusion?
Well, that it's a process of the mind. Yeah. So we recognize, we see even that witness, that witnessing attention that moves here and there. We see that even that is there's something that is simply aware here and now. Something that simply is. And so we can watch. I find it really powerful in meditation and in life, to just watch the attention, watch how is that attention moving, and who is moving that camera, who is moving that attention around, the attention of the mind, you know,
Okay.
and most importantly, who am I that is just aware, you know.
There's no answer.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you are the answer. That's it. You're it. That's it. You can be it. You can be that answer. And so that witness, I often use the phrase, the witness is the last holdout of the ego. That witnessing part of the mind, we're often, we come in our meditation to this place of witnessing, but there's still a separation. There's still, a sense that there's me here witnessing and something being witnessed, So as long as there's that split, but who is aware of both witness and witnessed, So we want to directly abide, or just be. And what unfolds from that if I'm just being, and
Okay.
if we do this, this is self-inquiry. But it's also life as well. Who is moving that mind's attention in day-to-day life? What makes that attention move? So we can yeah, just find out the one that is just aware and stay, abide as that, and allowing it all to be as it is. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you. Rai, you are back. Yes, hi there.
Yes. Hello, hello, I'm back. Yeah, I got cut off, so
Mhm.
but I had some more questions anyway, so it was good that allowed others to participate as well. And yeah, so did you catch my last question? Because it was related to what you were saying actually, in terms of just accepting with what is, everything that is, just accepting with whatever comes up and being with it. And the question I had in particular with that was in terms of how do you navigate that water, those waters in terms of accepting, but at the same time not engaging and yet bringing back your attention to the present moment as well. Because the moment you actually bring back your attention to the present moment and not engage in whatever the mind is kind of conjuring up is somewhat not full acceptance in a sense. Am I right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're just sort of coming to that witness that we were just talking about, so this is sort of a stage in the practice where, we're no longer, believing our thoughts. We're no longer, getting caught in the content of the mind, as the mind is producing it. So we've sort of come to this witness, but yet we're not fully in life. If we're just kind of hanging out as that witness, we've sort of disengaged. And so the next stage or the next step, once this is a necessary step, to disengage from the content of the mind, to abide as the witness. But then, as we do that, these energies, like what you were describing, this energy that comes when you're just present, this energy and aliveness starts to grow. It starts to move. It starts to become our compass. And rather than the thoughts coming up and making me move, this energy, life itself, can start to make me move, or make this avatar move. And this is something new. This is something that we're, it's like a baby learning its first steps, feeling this energy, feeling when that energy then goes back into the contraction of the mind, and so there can be this long period where we're sort of disengaged from, you know, the old pattern, but yet we haven't fully come into the stream of life as well. So there's a rewiring that's happening, so that more of this energy can move. And what I've witnessed watching people go through their sadhana, there is often this stage. We can call it a dark night of the soul, or just like a no man's land, or just this. Sometimes for some people, it is just sort of a quiet witnessing space where there's not a lot of stuff going on, and we don't really know. Like, it's like, people will ask, what am I meant to be doing? What is my, how do I engage with life? Like, I've let go of all the false stuff that I know it doesn't lead to happiness. So what happens next? And so this is, there, it's like in that darkness, there are these seeds that are growing. There's things that are yet to bloom in life. And so when we're in this phase, we're like a patient gardener, just tending the soil, and just allowing everything to move on its own. These energies, they know what they're doing. They know there's an intelligence to it, and I trust it. And yeah, so the practice is to allow that energy to circulate, allow it to move, and in life as well. Just, what what feels alive, and that kind of childlike movement where we just allow life to move us without, really, we don't have to try and figure it out. It's these things like, the mind will say, what am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose? What's the best way to make things unfold? But it's actually just, my teacher would always just tell me to move, just go, just do something, don't stop thinking about it, and just allow life to move you. And maybe is the right direction, maybe it's the wrong direction, but energy is moving, life is moving. So he would always just say, keep moving, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I do feel that energy moving. Just it needs to, yeah, as you say, maintain those fertile grounds to kind of allow themselves to grow, to grow that seed and that plant and that fruit eventually to ripen as well. Yeah, because I noticed, like, as I mentioned, I've actually been kind of disconnected for a couple months now, and I'm going into my third, fourth month now. Uh, and just basically meditating for the most part. Um, and yeah, and so I basically took that advice in terms of just accepting whatever comes up and just allowing whatever the mind is kind of conjuring up because those are the vasanas coming up. But at the same time, when I didn't disengage, almost automatically engaged in those processes. And if you just allow them to, it's never ending. Like I remember mentioning that I actually was going into like a semi-dark retreat, I guess, um, self-created, I guess, because
Yeah. How did that
uh,
go?
so yeah, I mean, it was interesting because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a perfect dark retreat, because it wasn't like an actual, dungeon or cave that I was going into. I actually had to like close the blinds and kind of blindfold myself, because it wasn't, there's still light coming through, but through the blindfold there wasn't. But from my understanding, it's not perfect because part of the dark retreat is actually eliminating melatonin altogether. So my skin still had some light reach it, and also just the blindfold was kind of it was discomforting. So sometimes it was it wasn't perfect. But I did, through my third, fourth night, I started kind of seeing somewhat of a light show, but at the same time I knew it wasn't exact as it would have been. I'd like to go into one that is just completely dark for 4 to 6 days, because I know, that's kind of where it's at, the complete darkness in totality. But in terms of my meditation, like I basically was meditating for 4 days, continuously, and my mind just wouldn't stop. Like I just, it just I couldn't really find stillness, I guess. But it was an interesting experience nonetheless, and it's definitely what I needed to kind of uh, uh, strengthen my meditation practice. Just now I can sit for 2, 3 hours and not even feel like I'm meditating. Before, 1 hour was just like, okay, when am I going to be done with this, kind of thing. So my mind is settling, so that's actually a really good thing. But
Amazing. Yeah, that
yeah,
sounds good. If you can sit for that long, even if the mind, yeah, like that preference, that the mind is still, we want the mind to be still. It feels peaceful when it's still, but that preference itself is part of the mind, So it is such a paradox. The moment we really accept that the mind is busy and we don't resist it, it's more likely to settle. It's like the one that wants to settle it down, is part of that movement of the mind. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So part of the practice is to disengage, yet at the same time maintain, disengage in the process of the mind, but at the same time allow the mind to kind of just conjure up whatever it wants to conjure up, right? So yeah, I'll maintain that practice, and I'll maintain kind of bringing. Today I felt a shift. I really did feel a shift that, I'm just kind of disciplining myself to just bring myself back to the present moment in whatever case and scenario I'm in. Which brings me to my next couple questions, if we still have some time here, and nobody else has their hand up. Um, so, uh, in my in the process of filling up the form for the perpetual sadhana, you had some pointers in terms of like if you have like depression or OCD or schizophrenia or bipolar, which seemed all to be kind of mental disorders. Um, so I took the depression because of the Dark Knight episode, and I took the OCD part because I realized I had OCPD, which I kind of was more specific about. Um, but now I'm actually I've realized I actually have a mild case of OCD, which I mentioned to be OCPD because the difference between OCD and OCPD is that OCD is intrusive, you don't want it, and but OCPD you kind of you like it, the way it is, kind of thing, and my case of OCD is kind of a symmetry OCD and a perfection OCD, which relates a lot to the OCPD kind of qualities. And I like things to be in order. I like things to be organized. I like, but at the same time, it kind of eats at me as well. It's getting to a point right now where I'm feeling it's hindering my practice because obviously the practice is to just be with whatever it is and not necessarily try and make things right, which is the type of OCD I kind of have, which is mild again. It's not intrusive to a point, and it's something, again, I like to be organized. I like things to be organized. But I find that, for instance, yesterday the room wasn't organized, and and my mind at the same time, if my room is not organized, my mind isn't organized. So it's hard for me to meditate. But today my room is organized, and so my mind is organized, and it's much easier for me to meditate at this point. So why did you have those conditions kind of like what is it about OCD and these things that kind of from my understanding they're hardwired things in the brain that are kind of hard to kind of overcome. Um, so what is your take on just that and how to kind of
Mm.
how to not allow it to hinder your practice? Because if 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 something needs to be right for you to be able to practice, then obviously you're not being with what is, right? So
Mm.
what's your take on that?
Mhm. Yeah, good question. So, yeah, I would say the reason we have those things on the sign up form, I personally feel there's nothing there are no conditions that ultimately prohibit awakening. But so it doesn't matter. Sometimes these different conditions will be so strong that the first stage or the first step is to come to this sort of witnessing position in our practice. So so like if you take something that's really extreme, for example, like schizophrenia, if the mind is really, really strong, it's producing a lot of phenomena, and there's a very strong identification with that mind. The practice initially at the beginning is to just let everything be as it is, to witness. But if certain individuals are, they're getting kind of caught in in that phenomena that's coming up. They're reacting to it. So there's like a drama starts playing out, and it's not productive. They might get totally identified with, maybe something that can happen is. With schizophrenia, and this is something that I experienced when I was a kid, so I'm pretty familiar with it, where this stuff will come up from the unconscious mind, images, thoughts, a whole landscape of stuff can be produced in the mind, and if you feel that it's real or that you're reacting to it, it can create a very unbalanced body-mind state, and it's not productive if you're just caught in that reacting to what's coming up in the body and mind. So I would say there, if that's the case for certain individuals, there's certain things that will sort of maybe balance that condition out before they get into doing things like self-inquiry. There may be just certain stages of the path that are necessary to, things to address before diving into that. So that's all. So we have those things, on the sign up, just to make sure that we're not doing more harm than good, because it can destabilize certain individuals. If they have certain beliefs about sadhana, or about wanting to achieve samadhi, and they're just really, it's the conditioned mind that's trying to do something. We've had, I'll give you another example. We had someone who one time had experienced a great loss in their life. They lost their son, and they had this incredible grief, but they hadn't really processed it or dealt with it, and they came to the retreat, and just they felt like this human realm is just suffering, and they want to just experience samadhi and transcend everything, just not have to deal with this grief and all of that. And what happened was there was a split, or a dissociation happened, and there was a pathological part of the mind became very active, and so it became like a crisis kind of situation. So those are the types of things that can happen if we're not attentive to what's actually happening in the body mind. So those are the types of things. Like in that case, it would have been maybe more productive for that person to actually go into the grief, to do some work with actually, just on that level
Yeah.
of, actually feeling what's happening in life, and maybe working on that level to move and process that grief in a healthy and productive way. And then, once that energy is sort of freed up, then we can go into these practices, and they become more productive. But if we're splitting a part of ourself off in some way, then we can run into trouble on the spiritual path, and this is the same thing can happen when people have kundalini awakenings, and there are these dissociated parts of the self that can kind of spring to life, and then that's when you run into like a spiritual crisis in those kinds of situations.
So how do you recommend me cope with this OCD, less mild OCD? As I mentioned, it's not it's not that bad where I can't kind of practice meditation, but at the same time, I know it's hindering, that the full acceptance and allowance of what is, in order to, reach that awakened state, so it's like I'm having to let go of something. I kind of, I like things to be organized, as I mentioned, but at the same time I know it's hindering that practice of awakening, the actual allowing what is.
I think it's like what's coming up for me is the question, like is it really hindering your practice, or is it actually showing you the way? So when you say, I have OCD, or I like things to be organized, you know who is that I? you know so that pattern, that compulsion is part of the character, right? It's part of the conditioned self. So it's a pattern that's in play. But the question is, who am I? So is this this entire character. We can do all sorts of things, on a psychological level and explore these things and change the patterns. But it's still the character, so we can wake up from that character, or we can, work on the level of the conditioning and evolve it and change it. So when you say I have OCD, or I am, liking things to be a certain way, who is that I?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's I think part of the hard part is the fact that it's hardwired, it's just it's so hardwired that you're obviously trying to rewire the brain so that it doesn't, so it's but it's so hardwired that you kind of have to kind of let go. Which brings me to my next point is with psychedelics, there's a lot of research on this as well, but I've personally had my own experience with it as well. A couple of years ago, that when it tends to actually help with the rewiring and the default network of the brain, where you kind of release those hard wirings that don't really benefit you in any way, right? I remember having a psychedelic experience, taking shrooms, and free, like I just the next day was just freed of that OCD. Like I just like there just didn't make sense for me to actually have, to be this certain way, this kind of way. So um and I know you have a 5 MEO experience that you did or used to do when you actually had the physical sadhanas in the location, um, which I believe is part of the ego death that you kind of that facilitates this practice. Um, Now I'm looking into doing shrooms again here. But my question is, like, do you feel that it obviously helps, but at the same time, is it somewhat of a shortcut someone takes, like a cheat, like some in terms of cheating towards that that goal in a sense, because it does help a lot. The only difference I know is that, when I did it years ago, I didn't know much, but now I know, now I know that when I have this experience, because I know a lot of people take shrooms, but it's just, to them, it's just an experience, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but
Yeah, so I think you're hitting it on the head here. So it can be both. It can be, it can be something where people learn they can produce experiences. It can be incredibly blissful. A lot of the conditioning, the default mode network will go more quiet, and these other levels of energy and the mind will be present. So people can get into the situation where they're chasing the bliss, or they're chasing experiences, or they're really interested in the phenomena in that world, and so it can become like a crutch then. So I think it can be used in a way. Like we at our retreats, we used something called a iboga, which was, it had a unique property where the default mode network would go very quiet. And for me, what I saw it doing was, sort of the samskaras and the conditioning that we're working with in our meditation. It would just sort of accelerate that process. So because the conditioned mind would sort of drop, and mushrooms and different things like that are doing something similar. I think Aldous Huxley said, it's sort of this conditioned mind is like a reducing valve. So these psychedelics, you're sort of unfiltering, or that reducing valve is being opened up, so that all of the unconscious and the different dimensions of what we are becomes present. So if we do that in a way, if we're ready for that on our path, it can be pretty overwhelming, as I'm sure a lot of people know. If you aren't ready for it on your path, a lot of fear, a lot of conditioning can come up very, very quickly. So I would say, it's not, if we're approaching it in the right way, if we're approaching it, we're not just looking for experiences or states or predict, but we're actually interested in clearing the body mind, and we're approaching it that way, then I see it as not a shortcut, but a catalyst, actually, because you still have to face all the same stuff. You're just going to face it a little bit more quickly and maybe more intensely. So for that reason, I think it's important to do it in a way that's sort of the middle way. We don't want to just blow the doors off of Pandora's box, because sometimes you can't put that lid back on. So I think we're drawn to these things at different points on our path. And my experience has been, it's been productive, to do it at the retreats. We actually did a study on the participants. So what we found in the results of the study were that, so when it came to awakening and kensho, the use of the entheogens and psychedelics actually made no difference. You were just as likely to have an awakening, without it as with it. But I think the thing, like, we're actually, this study is an ongoing study, and what my feeling is for the benefit of it is, when it comes to the rewiring of the body mind, when someone has an awakening, there is a reconfiguration that happens in the body mind, and that rewiring. And I think the neuroplasticity and the rewiring is more, it sticks more, I guess. So my feeling is, the the tendency for those states, those one-off awakenings, or those awakened states, to turn into permanent traits. I think it's more likely, if we're doing either deep somatic kind of meditation, or working with entheogens and those types of things, where we're allowing this body mind to sort of transmute and rewire. So I think there is a benefit, but it's not, you know, in those experiences, I didn't see it necessarily as a benefit to knowing who you are. It seems like that kensho, that knowing my true nature, is something that, it's up to grace or to God, or, but we can't, there's nothing in the conditions that it will necessarily make that happen. The one thing that did make a difference was that people have moved through some sort of a dark night of the soul. So, when people have had like a real interrupt in the pattern of the conditioned character, um, those are the conditions that make kensho more likely. If life is just sort of humming along, and there's no, no real interrupt in that pattern, then, they're less likely to have that kensho or awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's best said how you said it, essentially as a catalyst, and I think I'm in a position to best integrate it at this point as well, understanding the the mechanics of it, and how, and my stage of in my journey right now. But I feel it. I feel it. It's something I need to do in order to kind of again rewire somewhat the brain, and allow those hard wirings to kind of just soften and allow me to kind of deepen into my practice. So,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it.
Mhm.
And I guess my last question connecting to that is not what, well, actually, it's not, it's not what's going to give you kensho and awakening at the end of the day. So is kensho and awakening, like, is it done through meditation? Is that kind of at the end of the day, that's kind of where you're gonna find it? Because uh, going through some esoteric studies, and I found that the fourth way. I don't know if you're familiar with Gurdjieff and the fourth way
Yeah.
practices, but
Mhm.
it seems that it's more of a living meditation, that you're just remembering yourself, barely sitting on a cushion. You're always remembering what you're doing,
Yeah.
and I'm finding that's gonna probably have to be more practical because I'm kind of running out of money here and running out of time. So I'm gonna have to find a way to just be
Yeah.
with what is, and
Mhm.
I can't be sitting on a cushion all day, which has been helpful. But I guess my question is, like, so with meditation, because at the end of like what you want to really find is the full silence, like, because I've read accounts of mystics that talk about the experience, and it's through full stillness that you kind of find that the depth of who you really are, right? So um y-
Yeah.
would you say that's right?
So yeah, I would say so. That pointer, be still and know, is probably the greatest pointer. Yeah. So, the fourth way, Gurdjieff, all of that, there's a convergence of what he's teaching with, these other traditions like Ramanist pointer, to just put attention on the self. Who am I? Ask, who am I? What is this awareness that is here now? And if we do that continuously, we can have our formal sadhana. Really, that's what meditation becomes, is the inquiry into, who am I in this moment? What is this? If I can abide as this consciousness that's here, without getting caught in the mind, and then, in life, continue that practice, rather than getting caught in the phenomena of the world. Use your time to continue to inquire, who am I in every situation, and see what makes the attention move in day-to-day life, you know. And Gurdjieff, he had incredible practices, watching that mind. When you go into a room, I remember one of his practices. He would get you to observe how that mind is constantly seeking comfort, and get you to reverse it. So instead of, sitting in the most comfortable spot that the mind wants, like, choose the uncomfortable spot, so doing things to interrupt these patterns of the mind. And we can start to do that. We can get creative with it, in day-to-day life, like just see, what's making me move in my life, and who am I?
Mm,
Who am I really? Watching this, who's watching this attention move and this body mind move through its day. And
yeah. Amen.
hmm yeah,
Thank
right.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan.
Thanks, Rye. Yeah, thanks everyone. All right. Well, yeah,
Thank you.
that was another hour and a half, flew by like very quickly. So yeah, thanks everyone. So we'll see you next week. And if you're part of the dyads, we'll see you in the evenings. So yeah, bye everyone.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.